I think another standout moment for me as well was Scotland. Because I think, I had spent a bit of time in Scotland and I could tell that, people were moving towards Labour and that people were kind of quite cross with very cross with the Tories and quite cross with the SNP. But I think the SNP collapse is huge. Like, for Labour to have picked up 37 seats, I mean, I thought they would be doing well if they got over 20, but that's such a big result for Labour.
Yeah, it's and what's quite interesting, I think, is in a lot of seats, the Tories came second to Labour. So you've got a situation in which it's not quite reverting back to the way it was before 2015, but you're heading back towards Scottish politics looking like the pre-independence kind of change with the SNP becoming so dominant. And I think it will be quite hard for the SNP to replicate a 2015 or 2019 style kind of Scottish wipeout type victory in the future. They're also in a lot of financial difficulty, and losing that much short money is going to really hit them very hard. They don't have the resources to cope with losing. I think it'll be about £1 million a year. So it's pushed them right back, I think, as a party to where they were pre 2015. And it will be quite interesting to see how they recover, because it feels very fractious within the SNP at the moment. It feels like a very unhappy party. And Stephen Flynn is going to have a very big job, working with John McSweeney to, I don't know, it's not
John Swinney.
I've got bloody Morgan McSweeney. He's going to have a very difficult job with working with John Swinney to sort of put the party back together, and whether they can do it is a sort of quite big open question. But it's also a kind of like, it's an opportunity for Scottish Labour to sort of re-establish itself. And we've talked a bit about this before. I'd be interested to see how you think, given how big that cohort now is and who's in it, how they're going to act, and whether they're going to you're going to get a more explicitly Scottish voice in Westminster, or whether they'll just sort of think of themselves as being Labour MPs like anybody else.
I think when you look at the cohort, and I've got a lot of friends who have stood as candidates and were successful. Honestly, I'm not just saying this because I know lots of them. They're a really bright, ambitious, talented group of people. I mean, obviously, you've got big names like Douglas Alexander, but people like Blair McDougall, who've been around for a long time.
McNeil, who's great.
Kirsty McNeil, some really, really, Mel Ward, some really, really great names. And I think that they've all lived through that period of Labour getting completely wiped out by the SNP. And I think they're quite cognizant of a terrible slur that an outgoing Scottish Labour leader, Joanne Lamont, made of the Labour Party, saying that the Labour Party in Westminster treated Scottish Labour like the branch office. And that was an attack that was very wounding to the Labour Party in Scotland. The SNP seized upon it. And there was a certain truth in what she said, which is why it stung so much. But that expression, branch office, it like sends a shiver down the spine of anybody who's been connected with Scottish politics in the Labour Party. And I think these new MPs will want to really send a signal to their constituents and to the Scottish media that they're very proud to be part of a UK Labour Party, but they are also part of a Scottish caucus, and that they are proud to be Scottish Labour under Anas Sarwar. So I think they're going to be they're not going to just blend into like an amorphous UK-wide Labour Party. They will want to have something kind of almost a wee bit culturally different from and I think that's a good thing. The question though is going to be, one of the things that I think Labour didn't do particularly well in the olden days before it got wiped out was people kind of got their safe seats in Scotland and all they wanted was a nice fat ministerial job in London, and sort of didn't really tend to their constituencies. And there was a feeling that that the constituency was used as a launch pad to get some swishy job. And I think they just have to think, and this is actually true, by the way, across the board, particularly because so many people got parachuted in at the last minute. I was having a conversation with some senior Labour people, and they were saying there's going to be a lot of the new intake are going to have to really put a shift in their constituency and really embed themselves in their constituency and not just chase after a ministerial job straight away.
Yeah, and but you have also got people, like Blair McDougall, like Douglas Alexander, Pamela Nash, who went through that 2015 experience, so kind of know why that happened, and presumably not going to want to let it happen again. It's kind of similar in a way to the Red Wall seats, which nearly all of which, not quite all of which, but nearly all of which were won back. It's not going to be the same. It can't be the same as last time, where a lot of those seats were taken for granted for decades because they'd always been Labour forever. There's now an understood threat, I guess, that means people are going to behave differently and they're going to look to build up some sort of proper machines in those seats, especially as in a lot of them you've got Reform in a pretty strong second place.
Yeah.
Where and very attractive to a lot of people who live in those places, for all the reasons that they voted leave, etc., etc. So Labour's going to have to sort of behave differently with the big majority to the way it did 97 to 2010, when a lot of seats were just taken for granted.